village outside Penzance in Cornwall called Marazion, and we've come to All Saints Church because one of my paintings is hanging here, and I thought it was an opportunity to both look at the church and to have a look at my painting and perhaps explain some of the work within the painting.
One of the things I think is very interesting about Marazion Church is that it's in such a busy place, it's such a busy village, and yet you step in here and you have complete peace. It's wonderful. So now I'm going to open the door and you can see what it's like out there.
They'd arrive up here, and then rather than take their boats, which would be too dangerous, apparently, it was too dangerous for them to take their boats around the coast. So what they would do is they would stop here and around here, and then they would come across and along this route, which takes them to up to Ludgvan, over the hill, and then back down into Marazion, and then they would go on to St Michael's Mount. So this is a traditional pilgrim route for centuries, actually. The site itself was a church from about the 4th century, or a sacred site, but it has been rebuilt, and this is a Victorian structure here, and it's got some very beautiful windows and all these lovely kneelers that are made by the local people. This painting came about because of a conversation I had with Canon Nigel. He said to me that he wanted a commission for the church, and when I came here and I visited the space, I realised that most of the people I met were pilgrims. And when he told me the story of the fisherman and the angel Michael, I realised that that would be the main subject for this piece of work. He told me that Angel Michael appeared to the fishermen and he told them to build a sacred space, and he saved them from danger. That's the story. So with that, in the 4th century, a church was built, but of course that's been rebuilt many times since, and now we've got this Victorian structure. But when it came to making this painting, I wanted the central part to celebrate the story of this church and why it was here. And I've also made sure that I use contemporary fishermen rather than put it in the past, because I think it makes it more real if you make it contemporary and now, actually. And I had a friend of mine modelled for the fisherman on the left-hand side. He was standing in the car park at the time, going like this. But it worked for me because I wanted also to have people in some of my paintings that are depicted here to be people I knew. I quite like that. In this painting I've depicted some of my friends and held them in time because it's part of my life. They're part of my life. You know, that's what it is, really. The other important thing is that it had to be in harmony with the church and the space that it's in, which is why I've used the arch there, and it's echoed in the windows and the shapes around the windows, because then it makes you feel that the painting was a part of the church rather than going against the shapes and the feel of the church. I needed it to be in harmony because what's important is the church, not the painting, if you see what I mean. Because I'm not a specialist in religion, although people think I am. I'm not. I just look it up and read up. But what I am is a figurative painter, you see.
Because you said to me once that some of the best art is in churches, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. See, I forgot to connect the two.
Well, there are some most fabulous paintings and artworks, actually, generally 3D, 2D, windows, you know, all of that, stained glass windows. They're all in there, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's celebrating the link between God and man and that spiritual connection. This little painting here is about Abraham and Isaac and the story from the Bible. And what I wanted to do was bring in stories from the Bible that related to pilgrimage and what I would say is life journeys. So the stories I've chosen to paint reflect some sort of life journey or some sort of experience, emotional experience, and some difficulty in life, which is universal, actually. It's depicted in the Bible, but it goes on now. You know, we still struggle with the same things, the same issues as human beings. The story of Abraham and Isaac was that Abraham believed that God wanted him to take his son and to sacrifice him in order to show his faith. Now, that as a subject is pretty dramatic, that a father's going to kill his son in order to show his faith. But it also, of course, relates to God giving his son in the Bible. But the interesting thing about this story is that he would have gone through with it had it not been for God's intervention and saving the child through a messenger from God who is an angel. And the angel stops Abraham from killing his child. So I thought about that story and I thought, gosh, there's a lot going on in something like that. The emotional disturbance of something like that. You have a man who thinks that God wants him to kill his child. You have a child who's vulnerable to his father's will. Then God says, don't kill your child. Then this man has to come to terms with the fact that he was mistaken and he was going to kill his child. The child has to come to terms with the fact his father was going to kill him. There's a lot going on in there that I wanted to show in this painting. I mean, it doesn't show all of it, of course, but it opens up that idea of changing a very fixed idea and a firm belief of going for something that you believe is right. And sometimes that's a really hard thing to do in your life, is to change your ideas about what was right. You know, when you're certain that it's right and then you find out it's wrong. This painting is about David and Goliath, and underneath I've written, and on all of them is written the Bible text and reference. In the painting itself, it's of David hitting Goliath between the eyes with a rock. Now, the story of David and Goliath is about a young farm boy. He was one of brothers. The brothers were warring against another faction. And he was sent by the father to bring food and ended up killing the main protagonist in the opposition, who was Goliath. And nobody thought he could do it. Now, we've all been in situations where we've been bullied, underestimated, and all of those kind of things. So it's another life journey in terms of pilgrimage through life. And this is from youth to adulthood, really, and manhood. It's a bit like being a filmmaker. I want the right character for the person that I'm trying to portray. And I like to find a reference point. And to try and find a reference point for this painting was quite difficult for Goliath. You know, you look in the obvious places, you think, well, I'll find somebody huge or somebody angry. But actually, in the end, I found the person and the character I wanted in an American wrestler. And this chap here is actually an American wrestler. I don't think he knows. I hope he doesn't mind. But he looked big and angry and red in the face. And I thought, yeah, that's about the sort of person that you wouldn't want to be up against. So if you won, you'd be well pleased. So I also captured him with the surprise, because it's that moment when a bully realises that they're beaten. The pleasure and surprise on their face. We've all had it. The story of the Annunciation is that the angel appears to Mary and tells her that she's going to be with child. And I've got the angel here, and the flowers are for purity. They're lilies, they're always used, or they're a symbol of purity. I needed to find a Mary to model for my painting, and it happened to be that my sister was staying at the time, and so she was kind enough to model for me. But I wanted to set up something which was quite humble. So we just used a simple chair, and she's saying her prayers and receiving the information in some kind of shock, I'd imagine, to be honest. This last one here is a painting which depicts Hebrews 13, verse 2. Do not forget to entertain strangers. By so doing, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. The reason I included this painting is because when we're dealing with pilgrimage, it's about journeys and life journeys. And I always think that if you're lucky in life, you have a home, you're loved, you have your health, you have money to pay for your home, and you can survive. But if you don't, your life can be very different. And sometimes we all need help of some kind. And it seemed pertinent at the moment that with refugees and with times being difficult for a lot of people, that we should remember that what we have is quite fragile, actually. And all of us, whether it's a dog or whether it's a person, can end up being homeless or being in trouble. And so I wanted to include that in this painting, since it's about pilgrimage and shrines, because it felt relevant that it should be the last thought, really, that we're all pilgrims, we're all on a journey, and sometimes it doesn't go very well, and sometimes we need help. This little book accompanies the painting and explains the painting. So if you wanted to have a copy, you can get it by post, or you can call in the church and get it. But all the money, every penny of it, goes to Roy Trio's Miracle Fund, and that is shared out to charities as and when. So the information, if you wanted one of these books, comes up after the film.